When I read an author for the first time, sometimes I think of it as going on a first date. This is very cheeky of me though, because I have, some would argue, only dated one guy, and that one guy I married. Now, I had gone on dates in my youth and teenage years that it was never very serious, and I definitely haven't been dating, or I've never been on the dating scene when dating apps were in play. That one guy that I married, I have been married to for almost 16 years, which is why when I play the game of would I date that author again, meaning if I read that author, did they impress me enough or intrigue me enough to take me on a second date, it is done with this sort of playful cheekiness. That's this playfulness, this lightheartedness that I don't take very seriously, rather than uncovering sort of like the halls of horrors of the modern dating scene, one of which that I have been very gratefully spared from. So today in this video, I'm going to be talking about authors that for the most part, I've only read one book from. And that one book has determined my relationship with that author. Now, for the most part, it's a spectrum, but we're going to start with authors I've essentially ghosted. It is the equivalent of I read one book, I went on one date, and if I saw that person in public, I would dodge from their view. Like I would hide from them in public. I would not be like, "Oh, hi, how are you?" I would probably be like, "Oh my gosh, I went on a date with that person and now I am literally hiding from them." Okay? Which is very against my personality. Even people I don't have fond feelings for, I will typically say hi to in public. So it has to be pretty bad. The second category, sort of moving along the spectrum, is going to be that I have a flirty relationship with that author, but I'm intentionally being coy and hard to pin down. So it's like, I kind of want to read another book by them, but I'm not super enthused. And I don't know. I just don't know. And I'm being sort of I'm sort of being intentionally slippery. Like, when do you want to go out on our next date? And I'm like, oh, I'm kind of busy this weekend. Maybe next weekend if I have nothing planned. That kind of thing. And of course, and I take this all with a tongue in cheek, because my dating life would be so boring. Like, the history of my dating life would be so boring. Okay, and then the last category is second date. It's pinned down. It's in the books. Like, I already know what I want to read from that author. I am excited. I feel great. And I don't know. There's just like a joyful anticipation to read the second book from this author. So we're going to start with Ghosted. The first one is going to be Marion Zimmer Bradley. I despise mentioning Marion Zimmer Bradley on the internet now because I am reminded over and over again of what a horrible person she is. I read The Mists of Avalon. It was it was fine, but I could see immense issues, and mostly her as a person, like Marion Zimmer Bradley as a person, she as a person, rather, is just, yeah. And whenever I mention her, I get a flood of comments about, what an awful person she was. And yeah, and in this instance, in this very particular instance, it has gotten increasingly difficult, if not impossible, for me to separate the art and the artist. And so she is somebody I would, if I saw her in the grocery store, literally as a person, but also as an author, if I saw her on the bookshelf, I would dodge her. I would be like, no, thank you. Okay, we're moving down the list. The next would be Sally Rooney, which I read Normal People, and I honestly could not understand what the hype was about. I was like, it's fine, I guess. And Sally Rooney is equivalent to a young man who everybody's like, he's so great. And I'm like, is he? I'd be like, he was kind of boring and basic. So yeah. And I was not impressed by Sally Rooney, especially since I could feel the cadence of how she writes. I could feel it, like, for the formula of her chapters and the plot. I could feel it like halfway through the book. So it was like, your next move is going to be this, and then it's going to be this, and then it's going to be this. So I'm like, gosh, you really are so boring. So didn't really like Sally Rooney. She's on my list of I would ghost them / dodge them in a grocery store if I ever saw them in person. Okay, the next is going to be Miss Colleen Hoover. I read Verity and I was like, what? What is happening in this book? The amount of times that book went off the rails, like truly there were rails, and we have gone out of the realm of actual reality into some cuckoo's bananas crazy fictional fantasy land, was insane. And I was like, okay, again, this is Colleen Hoover is the equivalent to the basketball star on the high school basketball team that everybody loves. And everybody is like saying they're so great. And then you actually see them play and you're like, what? Why have they not been benched for half the game? I hope my metaphors are not super off the rails, y'all, but I do need to change my camera battery. Next up is Flirting. So I read Little Fires Everywhere. I thought it was fine. About two families of different socioeconomic statuses that come together, and conflict comes together from their differences and the way that they're reacting to each other. So Little Fires Everywhere. I read this a long while ago and it was fine. And so here's what's interesting though, is that since reading that, and that actually goes for the next author as well, since reading Little Fires Everywhere, whenever I see that Celestine is coming out with a new book, I'm like, oh, good for her. Not for me. It's almost like I don't know if I would actually dodge her in a grocery store, but I would be like, oh, I don't wish her ill. They're not that I wish other people ill necessarily, but there is this like, oh, I'm so glad that you're doing well. Sort of that condescending tone, but like, it just was like, I guess you have your fans, but I am not one of them. Okay, we're gonna switch over to another just queen of a genre, but she didn't work for me, though I wouldn't necessarily, again, wish her ill, which is going to be Sarah J. Maas. So I read A Court of Thorns and Roses. It was in some ways similar to Colleen Hoover, like the plot was kind of bananas. It was very, Colleen Hoover's was supposed to be like set in the real world, but be a thriller. So of course, like fantastical things happen, or like sort of unbelievable things happen, right? With Colleen Hoover. Whereas the big difference is Sarah J. Maas is that her world is fantasy. It's intentionally fictional, so you can push it into that fantasy realm and all of that. I think my biggest problem was that the plot just seemed incredibly wild, just really outside of anything that made sense. It was just jerking you around in a lot of ways. And then the other thing was that the dialogue was, to me, not good. Like, I just was like, it felt extremely cheesy, and like I could not take it seriously. So, sorry, Sarah J. Maas. But again, she's kind of like Celestine. If I saw her in a grocery, I'd be like, oh, I'm in a grocery store. I'd be like, oh, hi. I'm so glad that you're doing well. Like, you have so many people that love you. You don't need my diehard fandom as well. So, that's fine. The other one that kind of like, the other person that I just don't understand the hype, truly, is Taylor Jenkins Reid. I felt like I was like, okay, like I kind of get it, but the amount of times that people just go cuckoo's bananas crazy gaga over her, I just don't understand. And in no way, and I should have said this at the beginning, in no way, like, am I trying to yuck someone's yum? If you love these authors, please, by all means, continue to love them. I guess I at some level, I don't understand the fandom. I'm like, yeah, you know, I read Daisy Jones and the Six. It was good. It was good. But like, it's like, I saw, I experienced, and I don't need another one. Like, I don't need another book from her. Like, I am satiated, and that was fine. I'm never sitting around thinking, oh, you know what I should do? I should read the next Taylor Jenkins Reid book. No, that never happens. Okay, another one, but this is more of like, I would straight up walk to the other side of the sidewalk and like sort of, I would like walk to the other side of the sidewalk and maybe even cut my face or like pretend to be on the phone while myself and this author passed. And that is Gabrielle Zevin. I read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and I was just like, oh, okay. So our thing is unlikable characters and unrealistic scenarios set in, like, pushing the nostalgia button, like, because we're talking about video game creators set in the very recent past, but in all of our memorable pasts, and creating a scenario that is just not good. I don't know. I was just like, I didn't like the characters. I really didn't like the way that and it wasn't like, oh, she intentionally created non-likable characters. It was like, she continued to make her characters kind of despicable. So yeah. Okay, the next one, this is one of the few authors that I've read 3 things from him. I read John Steinbeck's The Red Pony. I also read not East of Eden, Of Mice and Men. And I read at least one full Arthurian retelling in a collection of stories of Steinbeck's Arthurian retelling collection thingy. So, and I did not like any of them. And so we're saying goodbye to all of my John Steinbeck on my shelves. So this is East of Eden. And the thing is that just like the star basketball player that we got from other authors, Steinbeck is a star, like, classics author. Like, people, as things drop, people love his stuff. People love his stuff. And it's almost like that was not the experience I had. It's almost like he has dated around and people are like, oh, he's so, like, what a great guy. Just what a fantastic guy he is. And I'm like, really? Is that really? I'm like, that was not my experience. I'd be like, he was kind of negative. And he wasn't very nice to animals. And he was kind of boring. So, yeah, we have this. So I'm just like, goodbye forever. Now, the other author, people are like, he's so brilliant. And I'm like, yeah, but he's kind of a jerk. Like, this next author, that's what we're talking about. William Faulkner. I read Sanctuary, still stands as probably one of the worst reads of my entire life. I cannot stand that book. And I know, like, this was a money grab, a cash grab for him. Even the people that I group read this book with here on BookTube have said that it's not one of his best works. It wasn't good. And I was like, I get it. Like, I get it. Like, I caught him on a bad day. I get it. And you know, I should probably give him the benefit of the doubt, but it was such a terrible experience that I'm like, oof, if I saw you walking down the street, you know, Faulkner, I would literally be like dodging behind a car to hide from him. I'm like, there's no interest in reading him again at all. I cannot even bring myself to even think about wanting to read another Faulkner. I'm just like, get away from me. Back Satan, get back. Like, that would be my reaction to him walking down the road. Okay, the next book I have, let me pick up the book that I dropped. Another author that I read more than one book from, which is, again, kind of rare for this list. A lot of them, it's like, we've only been on one date, I've only read one book. And I have read The Handmaid's Tale and, what is it? Alias Grace from Margaret Atwood. I really didn't care for Alias Grace. It was a bit of a slog. And I liked but didn't love The Handmaid's Tale. So I have, and you'll see in an upcoming unhaul video, The Robber Bride. I'm going to be getting rid of Margaret Atwood. I just need to come to terms with, like, you know, it was fine, but I'm not interested. Like, it was a fine experience, but I'm just not interested in spending my time with you. Sorry, not sorry. And then the final person that I'm sort of kicking off this list, I read The River, I think it was, by Peter Heller. And Peter Heller is known as like an author's author. Like, authors like his work. He has his fans out there. And I own The Dog Stars. And I was just so put off by The River. Again, the contrivances were bizarre to me. And I read this with a group, and the contrivances for most of us were pretty bizarre. It was just an odd experience. And after that, I know The Dog Stars is supposed to be a better book by him, but I cannot even get myself to the point where I even want to read this. And I know I have so many other wonderful books on my shelves. So we're cutting ties with Peter Heller. Okay. The next is like this flirty relationship where I'm like, oh, you know, I kind of want to go on a second date, but it would sort of have to be in extraordinary circumstances, or if I was bored, you know, like. And the first person on this list is going to be Allie Smith. So I read Autumn by Allie Smith, and I liked it. I could see why. I could understand on some level why people really like her. She's playful with language. Her observations, her writing is really warm and inviting. But I don't want to start here with Hotel World. I think I would rather start with like How to Be Both, or just something that I think would for sure give me a better experience than this particular book. But I do have that like, maybe on the right day I will try you again. Like, we'll have another encounter, and hopefully it will be better than the first. The next person, which I don't know, I am, spoiler alert, I am unhauling this book, but I don't have negative feelings towards this author, and it is The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. I read Station 11, and again, it's like, oh, I can see why people really like this. Now, did I really like it? I thought it was at best clever or cheeky in a way, but I didn't love Station 11. And so I don't think I'm super interested in continuing with this like post-apocalyptic series that she has going on right now. But in the future, if she wrote something and, you know, was getting a lot of buzz and Steve said it was good, I'd be like, you know, yeah, I'll try you again. And I don't have like a negative feelings towards her. I just, you know, like I don't know, she's just not necessarily for me, but I'm not putting her out of my mind forever, like some of the other authors that I've mentioned. The next that I have like fond feelings for, and I even know probably what book I'll read next from her. Sorry, itchy face. And it is Jeanette Winterson, The Passion. So this is very fantastical, Napoleonic era love story that has these really like magical, but it's like magical realism meets literary fiction in historical fiction in The Passion. And it was lovely. It was really lovely done. Like, it was very sweet. And some of the scenes are very memorable. So I have her book written on the body, and I want to read it. I think it'll be a great experience. And so I'm like, okay, all right. Like, I think, you know, the day will come where we will meet again. All right. Let's see. I'm like poking through my books. Okay. The next person is going to be actually Zadie Smith, which, funnily, I had her book. What was it? It was The Fraud. That made it to my worst books of the year. But funnily, I could tell that Zadie Smith was a good writer. I just didn't like that book. And so I have her book, White Teeth. that will be my next read from her when I'm, I don't know, sort of pushed to read it. And that is like the very specific next book that I'm going to read from her. And then the last person on this, like, I'm feeling coy, sort of slippery, like maybe we can pin something down in the future sometime type of vibe is going to be Louise Erdrich, which I have, and I'm actually going to unhaul Love Medicine, but I read The Sentence by her and I quite liked it. I don't think Love Medicine is the next read for me from her. I think I'm open to reading something else, but it has to be a very particular book. Meaning Steve Donahue has to have recommended it to me. But otherwise, I'm like, oh, The Sentence was good. It had like, I don't know, this zany sort of quirky humor in it that I really enjoyed. And I don't know what will be next from her, but it won't be Love Medicine. It will be something else, something that I think will be worth my time. But she's not on the banished list for me. The next one is like, oh my gosh, the next category as we're, moving, it's like, I would love a second date from this author. I am like, okay, we're putting you in the calendar. I'm going to be like wearing my best outfit. I'm doing my hair. We're getting real dolled up. It's going to be great because I feel so good about these authors. So the first is going to be Geraldine Brooks. So I read The Year of Wonders. Finally, I didn't love how this ended, but this book has stick-to-itiveness to it. We're set in 1666 in a very small town, and there is this, like, I don't know, there is this really, like, strong, silent main character who is trying to keep her head on straight as the plague has entered her village, and there are a lot of people losing their minds and doing just wild things, which in some ways is understandable, not excusable, but understandable because life and death has now entered their village in a very tangible way. And so, I don't know, there was this affinity to the main character, this really gritty sort of darkness, the dark side of humanity, but also the just wonders of humanity that just warm your heart. And I'm like, anything Geraldine Brooks has out there, I will read. I want to read more from her. I'm like getting myself all dolled up for a second date with Geraldine Brooks. I was actively looking for The Bee Sting by Paul Murray, which I do not know where it's at. I have a hardcover version of it as well, so I don't know where it went. He is another author that I would just be so excited to read from again. I read The Bee Sting, which was so good. It was about a family of 4 crumbling under financial pressure in Ireland and what happens and each of their takes on this situation of going from financial stability to financial desolation in a way, trying to hide it and trying to figure out ways of what to do with it and how that affects their social standing. It's a fantastic book. And the book that I want to read from Paul Murray, like, I'm like, not only are we going on a second date, but I know where we're going because it's going to be a great time. And it's going to be Skippy Dies because it's the book that I think he wrote right before The Bee Sting, and I've just heard great things about it. I heard the ending can be kind of like people, very polarizing, but the end of The Bee Sting was very polarizing as well, and I liked that. I liked the way the book ended. Our next author is Miriam Toews, which is an author that I read, Women Talking. It's about a Mennonite community that is going through a tremendously difficult time. And at the heart of the story, which the difficult time you find out in the very beginning, is that some of the men in the village were poisoning the women, like sedating them, so they could assault these women. And the women would be sedated during the assault. And it came about of, I think it's based on a real event, but I don't know for sure. And it's about the women trying to figure out what to do. And it is so, I think, in a lot of ways, I found it very wise in terms of, what to do with forgiveness and like the weight of, like the weight of our soul. It really, it boiled down all the way down to the level of the soul. Like, what do you do for not only like your tangible next step, but what do we do in terms of like our heart? Like, what can we live with? And I thought that it was just balanced so well. It was so sweet in a lot of ways. And I love that book. And I'm like, anything else? We need to book a second date soon at Miriam because that book was so good. The next person I am currently on a second date with, I was like, I don't want too much time to pass before seeing you again. And that is Curtis Sittenfeld. And this is Rodham. Rodham is about is the speculative fiction, playing the what if game of what if Hillary didn't marry Bill, and what would her political career have looked like if she didn't? And it was so good. There was this like cheekiness, this sort of like cheeky playfulness to the question, to the way that this was written, to how likable Curtis made Hillary Rodham Clinton be, like, in this novel. And there was just something about like Curtis's writing that I was like, oh, I don't know, like that. I really like what's happening here. So we have Rodham, and what else? Oh, and so I'm reading Prep by Curtis Sittenfeld, which is about a young woman getting Lee Fiera, who gets into a prep school. She is a scholarship student at a prep school called Alt in Massachusetts, and she's from South Bend, Indiana. And the utter awkwardness of your youth, like the true cringy awfulness of one's youth. I'm like 3/4 of the way done, and it is so well done. It is so well done. It is Sittenfeld's debut work. And so, there's some of the things that I liked about Rodham, the cheekiness and so on, is not necessarily at play in Prep, but the way that she captures just the utter cringy, shameful moments of one's youth is unparalleled. I have not quite read a book that to this level can write just absolute awkwardness. So it's grand. And also like friendships, it's not just, she's giving the full like campus experience of being, in your youth, sort of trying to figure things out on your own without that parental guidance like right there in front of you. And it's been good. It's been really good. The next author is going to be Sebastian Barry. And so what was interesting is that like he was longlisted for the Booker, I think last year or the year before. I don't know. I'm getting all my Booker years mixed up. But what was interesting is that he was longlisted, and the book that he was longlisted for, the premise was about a retired cop thinking about a case that was never solved. And that case had to do with the harm of a young person. And I immediately wrote off that book because I was like, I don't think my heart can take it. I don't know this author. I don't know how Sebastian Barry is going to approach this topic. And so, I was like, I don't know. And so anyways, what ended up happening was that I really love Days Without End, which is about Thomas McNulty, a 17-year-old who ran away from Ireland and the hardships there to come to the United States and take up arms, ultimately fighting in the Civil War, and his relationship with his friend John Cole during this period. And it was so like delicate and beautiful, and the language was so fantastical and artistic that I was like, oh, I would definitely read that other book that I have previously written off. Like, you've totally changed my mind about you. So it's almost like someone that you were like, I don't know if I want to go on a date with you. And then you're like, oh my gosh, it went so well that I actually want to book a second date, like right away. And then the last one, I'm actually going to grab the books. The last one is going to be, and this, in no way is a comprehensive list of how I feel about certain authors. And there are some authors that I just don't have anything. There's just nothing. Like, I'm like not opposed to picking up a book, but I'm also not eager to pick up a book. Just kind of depends. But I have Douglas Stewart's Young Mungo, which is just a fantastic coming-of-age story of a young man, and there's a lot of discussions about masculinity. I don't know, I can't remember if it's in Scotland, it's in Glasgow. So, and just like just different, what it means to be a young man and growing up and these pressures and not fitting into society. Great book, right? So I loved it so much that I bought Shuggie Bain as one of the 9 books that I bought myself this year. So yeah, I bought Shuggie Bain. I want to read it. I'm like, you were so thoughtful. thoughtful and impressive Douglas Stewart that I would absolutely love to read this this other book, this debut that people just absolutely went gaga over. I think this won the Booker, actually. Yes. And or was shortlisted. I don't know prizes from prizes. But yeah, so I'm just so glad to go on a second date with Douglas Stewart. So that's it. That is it from me. If you are a booktuber, if you're a person who reads, some authors that fall into these categories, you know, who would you dodge? If you saw them at a bookstore, who would you be like, oh, no, never again? You know, who do you have warm feelings towards, or at least sort of neutral / open feelings towards? And then who is somebody who you're just like, I want more from them? Please let me know. Thank you for letting me kind of be silly with this concept. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I hope to see you all in my next one.